Hey everyone, Cosmic Kitty and I are here to show you how we make Cajun chicken pasta. My favorite thing about this dish, aside from how delicious it is that it's a one-pot meal. From start to finish, you only need to use one pan, and you can throw some veggies in the microwave, and dinner is ready, and dishes are minimal. The other thing I really like about this is it doesn't have that many ingredients, and they're all what I consider pantry staples, with the exception of the cream cheese. But I think 90% of us out there have cream cheese in the fridge at most times. So I will call it a pantry staple too. This is the equivalent of 2.5 chicken breasts, and I have 3 cups of water with 2 cups worth of chicken bouillon. You can make this with plain water if you don't have any chicken broth or bouillon. The recipe I started using a couple years ago calls for only 2 cups of chicken broth, but I have found for my family, we like the sauce to be, typically saucy, not glumpy. And it takes 3 cups typically to get the consistency I like. Then about a tablespoon of minced garlic, a can of diced tomatoes. I like fire roasted, you do you. Cajun seasoning to taste. And then because we're a small family, I'm only doing half a box of the penne pasta. You can use any shaped pasta. I just prefer the penne. And that's it for ingredients. Plus it cooks in 15 minutes. Well, let's put it this way. If you start with pre-cooked chicken, let's say you meal prepped some grilled chicken or you picked up a rotisserie chicken, this recipe will be done in a total of 20 minutes, including chopping an onion, I'm sorry, I left that out. This is 1 chopped onion and a couple tablespoons of olive oil. And you could leave the onion out if people in your family don't care for onion. You know how Cajun seasoning is. It has so much flavor. You can get away with leaving out a lot of stuff and it'll still taste good. So depending on the spice tolerance of your family's palate, if you have some that can't handle much and others that like a lot, I recommend lightly seasoning your chicken. I've pre-cut this chicken into bite-sized chunks because it's just easier if you've got it cut before you put the seasoning on it, right? I'm only going to season one side of it for now because it's going to get tossed around in the skillet. And I just know from my family's experience and this particular bottle of Cajun seasoning, that's really probably all I'm going to need. That will make it mildly spicy. And by mildly, I really mean mild. And then if you've got, spice lovers at home, just put this on the table and tell them to add till they're happy. So that's going to go in the pan. Along with the onion. And I'm going to saute this for 5 or 6 minutes until the onion is softened. Then I'm going to add all the other ingredients except the cream cheese. You do that at the end. Bring it to a boil. Put the lid on it. Turn it down to medium-low and cook for 15 minutes. Alright, so this chicken and onions is done cooking. You don't have to get the chicken done completely through because it's going to cook for 15 minutes in boiling water. So don't worry about that. You're just trying to get the onion softened. A little garlic. I like to do about a heaping tablespoon, or the equivalent of probably 3 cloves. Just going to stir that around enough to bring it in. I'm not trying to really cook it per se, but warm it for a few seconds. One of the nice things about this dish is it's so versatile. You can add anything you want to this. If you're a vegetarian, leave the chicken out, add jackfruit or just veggies, some broccoli, zucchini, peppers. You can do whatever you want with this. You could do it with shrimp in place of the chicken or beef, but I'd say probably shrimp or chicken is the way to go with the Cajun or sausage. Italian, well, not Italian, but sausage, spicy sausage, less Cajun seasoning, maybe if you go with spicy sausage. Right, so that's good with the garlic. Now in goes the tomatoes. In goes the chicken broth. And the pasta. I'm not sure if this is quite half of a box. So I may add a little bit of that wheat just because it's already open and we don't prefer the wheat all by itself. So we'll see. I should say that this readily feeds 4 people with maybe a serving or 2 left over, depending on whether or not you have big eaters in your family. But if you have 6 or more people you're feeding, I would double this recipe. And the leftovers reheat so well. They keep for days in the fridge. So you can't go wrong if your family eats leftovers or if you take them for lunch. This is a great thing to have left over. And my YAs absolutely adore this dish. I'd say it's probably in their top 3 favorite things that I cook. This to a boil. Put the lid on it, turn it down to medium-low, set the timer for 15 minutes. I don't even stir it during that 15 minutes except maybe one time. So that's another nice thing about this dish. You can get your sides ready while it's cooking itself. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is if you're using pre-cooked chicken, I would wait to add that at the end when you add your cream cheese. You don't want overcooked chicken. Okay, so we have about a minute of cooking time left. And I like to take the lid off at that point, give it a good stir around, and then taste test one of the noodles just to make sure it's al dente, which this is, because this cooking time is really solely to get the noodles done. So if they're ready at this point, you don't need to cook it anymore, but you do need to add the cream cheese and the chicken if you're using pre-cooked chicken. So I like to pre-dice up my cream cheese, makes it easier to get it to melt in there. So I'm going to mix that in well. Then I'm going to pop the lid on it and just let it sit there for about a minute while I finish steaming my veggies in the microwave. I've got a loaf of bread warming up in the oven, and that's going to be dinner. Doesn't get any easier than that unless you go out to eat, and that's a lot more expensive, right? I don't know how much Cajun chicken pasta is in a restaurant these days, but I'm guessing at least $14.95. Times 4 people, you'd be looking at $60, not including drinks, tip. This is going to cost me about $5 for the pasta, the can of tomatoes, and the chicken. I don't count the spices because you already have those on hand, and $5, $6 if you add in the cream cheese divided by 4 people. Let's just call it $1.50 each. All right, so our fabulous Cajun chicken pasta is ready. Let's give you a close-up. Doesn't that look amazing? And just one last little tip, because we are doing a pantry challenge, most of us anyway. If you don't have any cream cheese on hand, you could use milk, half and half, heavy whipping cream instead, or sour cream or plain yogurt, although I've never tried those two. You won't have quite as a cheesy taste if you use any of the above. So I would recommend adding some Parmesan cheese or something along those lines if you aren't using cream cheese. And also, if you are going with just milk, whipping cream, whatever, I would recommend when you're sauteing the onion to add a tablespoon or two of flour to make a little bit of a roux before you add all the other ingredients, so that it's going to be a little thicker than it would without doing so, because the cream cheese does help thicken this up quite a little bit. So that's it for our Cajun chicken pasta. How easy was that, you guys? I highly recommend. Oh, and I did want to mention, because this has happened to us, if you get a little heavy-handed with the seasoning and it's too spicy for the majority of the fam, you can add some half and half or heavy whipping cream at the end here, and it will cut the spice down significantly. Just FYI. Take care, guys. See you on the next one.